Hello, possums. Hi to intrepid viewers everywhere. So good to see you. I'm Dr. Lena Rodriguez, and we're here to dissect, some of the chaos that has evolved in the last few days. Now, I deliberately took down my own last video because it was about toxic masculinities, right? So, given what happened, I think best take it down. So I did. So, in today's show, I'm going to focus much more on the economy generally. Now, this week was off to a flying start with the ice raid in Georgia, hundreds of South Korean workers. Now, the images went round the world because when they were first arrested as part of how ICE detains people, they're on chains, these long chains. Right. This image seared into the Asian psyche. And thanks to the Yeti, all these countries that weren't natural allies because of their own history are now bonded. So China and Japan, Japan and South Korea, South Korea and India, India and China. So we're seeing a whole reconfiguring of world trade in such quick time. It's in a split second in terms of human history. It's extraordinary to watch, and I'm not sure how much of this information is accessible to the American viewing public generally. But for us in the rest of the world, we're getting blow by blow descriptions. Because the world is blowing up. You can think of that as a bad thing, or if you have a longer term view, particularly of revolutions, you need to go through these bottlenecks to come out the other side. So Indonesia's protesting, Nepal is protesting, France is doing its very French thing. Macron has not gone. People keep saying, Macron, no, no, he's the president and the prime minister's gone. It's a different story. Anyway, what I'm saying about the Asian countries is to keep an eye on these developments because Hyundai and the whole of South Korea have now pulled out of 22 other investment propositions that they had lined up in the US. Meanwhile, the Yeti's wittering on about, you'll be inundated with the billions from the tariffs and people queuing up to invest. No, they're not, pet. They're so not. And you're driving them away. Even those who are prepared to bite the bullet say, we're dealing with a moron. He's a narcissist. We'll dangle gold things in front of him. We'll tell him what he wants to hear. It's even beyond that now. I know. All right. So I want to have a look at. Oh, before we leave the protests in India and Nepal, two things about those ones that are interesting is a lot of it is coming from resentment of the Nepo babies. That is the grown-up children of corrupt officials who are having playboy lifestyles while people are suffering. And you know what? Gen X, Gen Z, or the Gens are beginning to stir and recognize the dynamics for what it is. So, Nepo babies everywhere, look out. Interesting times. So, okay. Now, here we have you noticed your utility bills going up by a lot? Hmm. Now, why is that? I don't understand, by any definition, I do not understand the mechanics of AI or, for that matter, crypto. However, what I do know is both those things consume vast amounts of electricity, mind-bending amounts of electricity. And who'd be paying for that? You guys. So just be alert to that. Do you research yourself? Good. Now, what I heard was, or read in a substantial article rather, the aim of this administration is to try and convert the debt, the huge national debt, the big problem, into crypto and then devalue it. Let's see if that's a thing. Will they make the debt crypto and devalue? Okay. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh no. Oh my God. It's a very jaundiced laugh you're hearing. Now, in terms of conventional politics, Dems versus what used to be Republicans and so forth. Now, it was always about the debt and who could manage the debt and who was better at money. And always the general perception is conservatives are better at money. And always in real life, the Dems and our Labor, same thing, have to clean up the fiscal mess from the Conservatives. This is the real pattern. Anyone who's viewing this channel regularly, gets that. But look, they're going to have to do something because all his economic levers are disastrous and arguably quite mad. Look at this. Look at this. So the tower, built on unstable ground in the first place, lightning bolts. This is this crazy Uranus energy crashing around out there. He can't keep the balls in the air with the economy. I digress. Scott Bessant. Now he's a real Jekyll and Hyde. Okay, because I've made comments on this channel before. It's like he's sedated. If you see Scott Bessant, the Treasury Secretary, interviewed, it's like, whatever. You cannot believe he's a major player. You actually can't believe it. He is so zombified. Next minute, he goes and punches out people in the hallways. He physically attacked Elon Musk. I mean, it'd be hard not to, wouldn't you? He attacked Musk, and now he's attacked this other guy physically. So he's got this rage that is built up, and I think, arguably, who can say, but I'm suggesting it's possibly pharmacologically subdued on a daily basis. Scott Bessant's in big trouble. Now, where does he come from? He comes from a failed hedge fund management that lost $90 billion in one deal or something. Anyway, I don't know why he's leaping to the front of my brain, but along with Peter Navarro, these are his advisors, and it's coming undone. The White House, including Kim Jong-un Levitt, bride of Chucky, Caroline Levitt, trying to sane wash these things. This could be the farmers who are on a highway to nowhere with this administration. And of course, Vance has investments in those huge companies that buy up family farms. Hmm. So are they going to help the farmers though? No. But these guys voted 3 times for this. The only time when they had Dems in between, against their vote, when Biden was in, he had the US aid contracts, which really helped them. He had the Inflation Reduction Act that really helped them. He did work on their credits so they didn't get slammed over the credit. He did all that. So what do? They vote for the guy with the gold toilet instead. But this is farming. It's in real trouble here. Now, back to the crypto and all of that. Illusion, delusion, confusion. Now, basically, any carnival worker will tell you people are suckers and you've only got to find the right line, the right story. And of course, it's exciting. The idea, this is the way forward. There's no banks. Imagine how good that is. No bank. Well, it means Don Jr.'s playing with your money, love. Wake up. Anyway, it's going to take more than me to change the tone. So, crypto, in all its forms, is going to become hugely seductive. In answer to my own question, will they try and convert the debt to Bitcoin? I think yes. In terms of personal advice, just remember Bitcoin is not pegged to anything. Then you have stablecoin. Now, stablecoin, why have they called it stablecoin? The line, you see, it sounds stable. Doesn't sound risky, does it? Why would you go for this one when you could go for stablecoin? Right? Now, stablecoin is different. Why? Because it's currently pegged to the dollar at a 1 to 1.1 ratio. But it can be unpegged anytime. So, uh, anyway, back to this. There's going to be a lot of misinformation about this because it's like the debt's going to collapse twice. It's going to collapse in the conventional monetary terms under its own weight and then collapse under crypto. Oh, so look, I don't want to be the harbinger of doom and gloom, but I sincerely believe we have to look at what's really happening so we can make real decisions about what to do going forward, not just hoping for the best and it won't really get that bad and the Supreme Court won't really, you know, back him up again, will they? Well, let's have a look at that because a couple of big issues are heading for the horizon in the Supreme Court. What have we got with them? We've got, are the tariffs legal? Well, we know they're not, so you'd think 9 justices could work it out, but that's not how it works. Um, are the tariffs legal? My prediction on that is they won't actually say, yes, Donald, it's all right. They'll kick it back to Congress and Congress will say it's all right. So that way they're not losing face. Vomit, vomit. But now, this one today. 5 billion in what was US aid money because they just ripped up all these contracts. Things were contracted internationally, and $5 billion was contracted internationally for HIV prevention, early maternal care, etc., etc. And that money was frozen because of the court cases, and the Supreme Court's going to rule on that. Trump wants them frozen because he wants more money so he can lose more money. And obviously, those who care whether people live or die, on the other hand, would rather see that money released. But what about, I don't know if you caught up during the week, the mortality, maternal mortality rates and infant mortality rates in Mississippi are higher than most of the third world. You know, shocking. This is preventable stuff. Preventable. These are women and babies who are dying because they're American, right? So maybe some of that 5 billion should be spent locally, but that's another conversation. Here's the question. I'm going to go for the Russian deck here. Will the Supreme Court release the funding for the administration? Will the Supreme Court give the money to the administration? In other words, will the Yeti win? Will the Supreme Court, with this money, what's going to happen? 5 billion. Hmm, that's a bit interesting. Okay, followed by the high priestess. All right, now, under Justice Roberts' Supreme Court, who will go down historically for the gutless wonders that they are. Is that an Australian expression? Gutless wonders? Anyway, maybe not. Maybe you recognize it, but you could. Now, obviously, when we talk about the Supreme Court, we're not doing justice to the justices who hold the line against this stuff, but they're outnumbered, and that's how the system is. They still want to save him because they're invested, right? They're in the boat with him now, and they know his boat is sinking and he needs every win he can get. I think this represents those liberal justices who are seeing, they're witnessing, imagine what they hear behind closed doors from these closeted, vicious, skirt-chasing, primitive creatures who have made their way into the Supreme Court. Imagine, this is their pain. I think with this 5 billion, this looks like a reluctant whistleblower to me. Can you see that image? Someone's being interrogated and they're going to have to give up. So he's pointing on the table. He doesn't want to have to give up the goods, but he's going to. Oh, this is FBI. Oh, get onto that, Nick. But whistleblowers are going to start appearing, and you have to worry for them because, again, under Democrats, they had greater protections. They have no protections under this government. The 5 billion high priestess. I think the 5 billion is going to disappear. I don't know. Where's the 5 billion? I don't know. I put it somewhere. Hold on, I'll have a look. In my shoebox under the bed. No, can't find that 5 bill. I think it's going to get lost, meaning the admin's going to swallow it up. Oh, wow. It's amazing in this work. You can still surprise yourself. Oh, God. Now, yeah, Pash Patel, he can hardly come up for air in between court cases. So, directed by the Yeti Cankles Taco Tits himself, he got rid of staff who worked on any of the January 6th stuff. And he's also fired agents who worked on any of the Trump files. So they're going to court. Let's have a look here. FBI and Kash Patel. We had a look on him in the last video that I took down, but I want an update because these, look, let's be grown-ups. It's not the first time the FBI has been a bit bent. It's not the first time the CIA hasn't interfered inappropriately in other people's countries. Have a look at the history of Latin America, particularly from the 80s. But this type of old school machinations, we thought we'd all moved on a bit. What's happening with the FBI? Here we go. Yes. Oh, look. It's kind of good using these cards because they deal with all this behind the scenes, behind the curtain stuff. Right? So this is being frisked down, right? You know, look at this person who's being frisked. Going, what do you mean? You're searching me. I'm an FBI agent or whatever. They're starting to talk to each other. That's those who have been sacked, those who are being threatened with being sacked. I think they're having meetings about it. and they should be because these should be collective actions, not leaving one person out to dry. I think they're dividing up. They're trying to work out who they can trust, right? So this is meeting in a pack. This is different from let's get together. There are 100 of us who have been given our marching orders. Let's meet. This is different. This is much more low key, one-on-one. And this is saying, can you trust this journalist to get it out? Can you trust this Democrat to get this out? It's stuff, it's much more personal. And this is interesting. This is the armed forces in this card. This person, this figure in the middle, is a journalist, and he's taking accounts from uniformed military personnel, what they're thinking and feeling and what he's hearing about it. Look at this. These are all whistleblower and legal cards and all of that. Look at that. And from what I understand, they're not happy with being asked to do the gardening and pick up the trash and, do surveillance on their own people. You know. All right, let's have a bit of good news. In Virginia, the 11th district, Dems just got in. James Walkinshaw, I think his name is. He won 75% of the vote to 25. Yes, yes, yes. Right. Now, I just wanted to make this point back to the economy. Miraculously, we got the Department of Labor statistics. Fortunately, they're monthly. If they were 3 monthly, I think something had happened to them, but it's because they just whip around every 4 weeks. The administration hasn't got round to destroying them yet. So I'm sure you would have heard what they do is put out the projected figures on the information they have, and then they retrospectively revise. Oh, not as many jobs were lost as we thought. Oh, more jobs were created than we thought, or the opposite, right? Whatever happens. I'm itching to see the next report. I think it's going to be enough to cause complete havoc going forward. So let's have a look here. Let's have a look at the actual nuts and bolts of the real economy, which in no way resembles the stock market. Stock market, you make money in well, I can't even say that anymore. People actually make bets on industries collapsing. So there's always ways to make money in the stock market. Most people are worried and concerned with the stock market because your 401ks are in it. So only 10% of the population are players in it, but a lot more are involved in it. So it's in everyone's interest to keep the stock market high, and it can have a dip when the Yeti says something profoundly and particularly stupid and then goes up. Now, the economy, you can't fudge it in real life. So let's see how that's going. Now, I'm calling this Trump's Versailles moment. French Revolution, King Louis XIV or whoever it was, I can never remember which one it was just spending millions and billions on gilt mirrors and things. I mean, the obsession with gold, the obsession with gold. And Marie Antoinette, who may or may not have said the famous "let them eat cake," you have to think Melania's perfect as Antoinette, isn't she? So I think they're reaching their Versailles moment. Let's have a look. What's the next significant revelation in the economy? Oh, money's being stolen. Oh, this card's getting a workout today, this one. Well, look, I was shuffling, 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 and two of the same cards have turned up out of six. Means they've got something to say. Right, now, people are being ripped off. This is people who are being let go from places without due process. Due process obviously is a thing of the past. I mean, some white collar workers might get a bit of severance pay or something, but again, the workers at the bottom levels who get the worst pay anyway will have the worst conditions. This is wages being withheld, etc. Business. I think it's also small businesses going under. Now, with the lovers card, got to cover the naughty bits for YouTube. Okay, the lovers is people coming together, right? Not just in a conjugal sense, but realizing there is power in community. There is power in connection. If everyone just paddles their own canoe, that canoe starts to leak and eventually that canoe just falls to the bottom of the river. Or you can go out in a group of canoes, and when things start to sink, you can pull someone into your boat, or they can pull you into theirs, whatever. Working together is very important. And I think this is forcing us all in the Western world, but particularly the US, this thing of individualism, rugged individualism. Not working. No, it's not working. You need people. Confusion over the economy. I think at this stage, people are starting to get it, but are still, and we are too. Is this a time to do what? What should we be doing with any savings if we've got them? What should we do if we call it our superannuation, our 401k, if it falls through the floor because of the global economy being dragged into the sewer by the United States? What do we do? We've all got to think about this, and people are very confused. I see action is actually the counterpoint to depression and fear and anxiety. Action moves you out of those fearful states or out of the numbness or out of the pain, at least for X hours a day or something. You've got it then a sporting chance. It gets you out of that mode. That's what I think this is about. It may be online, doesn't have to be literal, but joining together. Here are the farmers again. Look, the thing with farmers and veterans, they both are archetypes of any country, not just America. And I'm a farmer's daughter. It's that salt of the earth thing that people, even if they live in cities, sort of hope for the best for the farmers, even if they don't understand the very first thing about it, as do veterans, because it's about those who are prepared for the ultimate sacrifice so you can have the life you're living. So those two groups capture everybody's national narrative now, and they are getting spat on and spat out. Will the Republicans wake up to this and start to act and in any way put pressure on the beloved Yeti? No, they'll be busy doing fake families and demonizing Central American drag queens and doing anything but look at the truth. They're living in their own delusion here. Everything's all right. Everything's all right. In fact, you need to come back to church and hear from our hateful, bigoted pastor who's probably, groping the young girls behind the scene or boys or whatever. No, you have to come back. The reason we're in this position is because you've left God. So they've sewn up their own story, right? And they don't want to hear it, but they are not the majority. In fact, they're not even half. So have strength in that. What are they? Probably 25%, which is weird enough for the rest of the world. We're going, right, 25% of people believe this. You know, God made the world in 6 days. So why worry about climate change? So this mentality was always there, but people with science degrees and real doctors and people with an actual grasp on modern societies were in charge of things like the Department of Health. Now, RFK may as well be a flat earther, you know, choosing ignorance, choosing ignorance. He would have had the most expensive education that money could buy, but so did the Yeti. And his teachers came out years later saying couldn't teach him anything, thick as a brick, didn't want to know. And in RFK's case, where's the conspiracy? What makes me different from other rich boys? Yeah, all my kids are vaccinated, but I now support this. Right? The worst, absolute worst. All right, my darlings. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Okay, take care. And blessings to Venezuela while we're here. Oh, and one more thing, really important. Melissa Hartman, because with this stuff with Charlie Kirk, I want her name to be remembered. We're all responsible for carrying her name. Right. There's others, of course, but let's carry Melissa Hartman's name. Thank you, guys. Best. Ciao for now.